Baba, sioni mwanga mahali popote. Yesu, nimefinywa sana. Oh, nataka hii sasa na hofu ile haiji kesho. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, 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 uvumilivu. Niweze kukungoja siku zangu zote, hata giza kiwe siku 40. Baba, Yesu, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Yesu, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Uchungu wa moyo ulinifanya nione umbali nami. Ukweli ni kuwa uliposema hutaniacha kamwe, hivyo tu ndivyo unavyotenda. Na hulali pia waniwaza. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Baba, nipe uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Siku zangu zote nikungoje. Uvumilivu, uvumilivu, uvumilivu. Yesu, nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 ninakungoja Yesu, ninakungoja, 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 nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 ninakungoja Yesu, ninakungoja, ninakungoja, ninakungoja. Nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 nitakungoja. Baba, nitakungoja, oh Yesu, nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, nitakungoja, nitakungoja. Nitakungoja, nitakungoja, nitakungoja.
Hello and good afternoon, Mamlaka. We are so excited to be back at Midweek Vibes. And today is one of those days that we have one of the coolest panelists. And we are so excited to have Vela and Alex back, and the Bishop and my co-host Bobo. But I would like them to introduce themselves so that as we delve in the topic of bouncing back, we know who we are talking with. So I welcome you, those listening to us from all the corners of the globe, actually, all the way from Britain, from Europe, from Southern Africa, we have guests coming to us from the US and from Germany. We welcome you all, and we wish that we're going to share a good time together, looking at how this year is going to present itself to us from the perspective of those that have taken time to reflect a little bit. So let me go ahead and introduce the panel. We start with my right, far right. Alex, please remind us of the blessings you bring to us.
Right, thank you. My name is Alex Mugai. I'm the CEO of Moran Capital Management Limited. We are a wealth management firm organized as a family office, and we've been in business in Kenya in the last 9 years. And we focus primarily on looking at how to create sustainable lifestyles for our clients within and out of the country. So around the globe, we have clients who we look at creating sustainable lifestyles for them and their families, despite the economic circumstances. So we try to focus on how we can create sustainability around that. And obviously, our exposure is really dealing with finance and looking at all strategic environments that can support that kind of growth.
Thank you so much and welcome. We are delighted to have you back. We feel confident and comfortable to share this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Looking forward.
Right. And right here next to me.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Vera Mungai, and I'm the Finance and Operations Director at Moran Capital, and married to one husband and mother of 4 children. So, and we are very, very glad, and I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Welcome. We are so glad to have you, and we are excited to share this afternoon with you as well. On my immediate left is my co-host this afternoon. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you and karibuni sana. My name is Charity Wamboi Mwaura. Mwaura is my father. I am call myself the bride of Christ. But we are looking forward to interact with you. So tell us where you're watching us from, and be sure to give you a shout out. So karibu sana.
Welcome. And then to my very far left is one who is special to us as a church and to my family. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Oh, it's actually afternoon. My goodness. It tells you that I haven't slept very much. It feels like morning. I think the weather has changed significantly, but it's good to be here. Looking forward again, as always, to do the midweek show together with you. Today I'm a guest, but I'm excited to discuss about what God is doing in this new season. So thank you.
Welcome. I'm actually excited. The combination of knowledge, skill, and experience here is amazing. So I don't want anyone to miss. So feel free to invite those friends to host a watch party and to let people know that there's good stuff coming here. So our topic, like I shared a little earlier, is bouncing back. We all know that last year was pretty hard. We dealt with a season like no other. And it was intense and new. And now that season is no longer as new as it was before. We have learned something. And we want to share what we've learned, the lessons that we are carrying forward to this year. How are we able to bounce back? Let's go right away to Alex. And as a business that manages people's wealth, as a business that helps people learn to manage their lifestyles in a way that is sustainable. What have you witnessed as a CEO? What is your current experience?
Okay, thank you. Well, I look at the situation of managing a family and what they should invest in the same way as you'd develop a strategic portfolio. You know, when you're developing a portfolio, you have some things in mind. One, you deal with 3 things, which is the history, what has been known of the market, what is current, what have we exhibited, and what do we expect of the future. So when you're building a portfolio, those are very key things to think about. In terms of where we are now, assuming you are hitting reset button, because for the first time, you have seen a real crisis.
Yes.
the steps that you take are different from people who had taken those steps before. If you look back in 2007, 2008, there was a crisis, the subprime crisis. And that hit us because it was a financial crisis. You learned a lesson at that time. And those who learned the lesson at that time knew that you always need to have some defensive stocks, some defensive investments, some investment in fixed income. Away from my normal salary, I need something that is sustainable during a pandemic, a financial crisis. That was very, very true to you then.
Right.
So now, if you had not picked that information at that point, this one has been a double whammy. So this one has come with both financial shocks, and this one came also with some other shocks that you had not thought of, your health and those kind of things.
Exactly.
So if you are hitting reset now, you need to start by actually focusing what are your life's goals, so that you can set a barometer to know that despite a shock, my goals will still be sustained. You need to be awoken to yourself, to the fact that you are a head of a family, a head of a business, a head of a department, and it needs to be sustainable despite what happens in the market. And you now need proper professional guidance, and you need to sit with your team, even at home. Those who sat with their families and had proper family governance structures and said, kimeumana, things are difficult, it was easier to adjust than those who didn't even want to disclose they had been let off. So, you did not adjust your costs, you did not adjust your lifestyle. So it is harder to adjust when you have not discussed together as a family or as a corporate to know what is our action during a crisis and what have we built in for sustainability. Those who had built in those systems are finding it easier to pick up because they had communicated and everybody was on board. Now, those who had not communicated what happens and you did some major layoffs in the company, you didn't tell them what exactly was happening, suddenly people found themselves in unusual relationships, it's harder to reset. So what we are finding is that those who communicated
Yeah, right.
were able to reset and will be able to reset better going forward.
Let's bring it a little closer home
Yeah.
and say, did you sit down with your employees and say, this is a COVID season, it's not familiar, it's a new space, let's embrace it together. Did you do a sit down?
Yes, I mean, in the industry, and the business that we are, if we didn't do that, it would be a sin.
Right, right.
We sat with our employees. We told them, first of all, the reality is we expect there could be a business slowdown.
Yeah.
And this was earlier in the year when we started hearing there will be some restrictions. Remember, we are a fairly international business, so we could see a lot of concerns, and we expected that clients will start requiring money now from us because their businesses will be impacted.
Yes.
So we knew there might be some depletion in the portfolio. So we sat with the team, but we told them what's going to be impacted first are the hard expenses. Things like we need to renegotiate with our landlord. We need to look at cost cutting from that angle. But certainly the employees would come last. But it doesn't matter that we told them that. They still went and made sure they had redundancy covers. And, they were still worried.
Yes.
It doesn't remove the
Yeah.
human concern that,
Yes.
okay, the boss has said that, but at which point do I know that I'm going and what happens at that point?
Yeah.
But still, it was good that we had that conversation with them because they also made their own adjustments internally in terms of their expenses. We agreed maybe you come to the office one day, don't come to the other. The work from home formulas, we really worked on that to make sure that we would not have an impact on our soft assets, which are our staff. So we did have a communication strategy. A sustainability strategy was also to make sure that, what plans we had for expansion had to come, to a halt first because it went into survival mode.
Right.
And you need to tell people we are now in survival mode.
Yes.
Otherwise, they don't know what exactly is going on.
Yeah. We'll come back there to pick it up from there. But let's hear from the bishop in brief. How has it looked like to bounce back for us as a church?
Even before I say that, I'm just interested in what something that Alex has said, and it's good. I mean, I'm thinking about you people do this, you do financial planning, you talk about the future and so on. Just thinking, most organizations, especially the church, when something like this catches you unawares. Maybe for the first time we had to face a situation like that. Like, we haven't had to lay off people in the past. But this time, even explaining to people that things are not, business as usual was very difficult. And people don't expect, there are things that people don't want to hear from the church, like you're being laid off, for example. I guess it's just the way people view the church. This is where people come for help. And yet, we were as affected as everybody else. So, things like redundancies and laying offs are taken very hard in the church context, just because of who we are. And I'm wondering how that can be, I don't know whether it's mitigated. It's not like we are looking forward for another pandemic, but these realities hit everyone. And it's very, very difficult for people to adjust. And I don't think, even though you may tell people, this is the situation we are in, we can't afford, we had to close down many ministries. And obviously that comes with redundancies. Is there a way of softening that? Because, what do you do? And your fortunes have declined, or things have changed so significantly, especially like our missions department. They don't run, because where are you taking people to go and do what, and with who?
Now, that is not unique to the church. It is not unique to a certain industry. It is unique to leadership. I know very well that, we read about Joseph. We've been told about Joseph in the Bible. And what Joseph did, essentially, when he went to Egypt, is one day he had to tell Pharaoh there will be a famine at some point.
Yes.
We, in a previous context, we shared that if you look at the last 100 years, last 200 years, there's been a pandemic of X proportion every 5 to 7 years. So today that that will happen, what will you do? Because when the next one comes, we are not going to have the same conversation. We should build a sustainability structure. What that means is I should find avenues. For example, I'll give you just a slight example. We have businesses where the principal has told us, listen, my operational cost is this amount every year. I want to make sure that this amount at minimum can be met whether I have extra revenue or I don't. And that is our role. Because we come and tell him, you need, 5 million every year, or 10 million, or 2 million, whichever number it is. So we are able to calculate what kind of portfolio do we need to grow to maintain an income to you every quarter. Whether there was an extra cent or not, for the next 100 years, we are going to ensure that between us and our partners, are going to make sure that those operations are met. How do large organizations sustain? A lot of times the word is cost cutting. But the question is there another alternative? And the alternative is build a sustainable portfolio, a passive income of some sort. And what does that look like? In Kenya, we all love real estate. And that's what you build houses so that whether your business works or it doesn't, I will get rent. But then now your tenant has been hit and cannot pay. So what happens in terms of that sustainability? The question is, we then as advisors would have told you, you need a portfolio which has exposure to some certain sectors of the economy which are resilient despite the economic circumstance. We have portfolios that have some exposure to government, have exposure to health, have exposure to technology, defensive industries, that when yours is in shock, the funds that we have invested there will pay you your 5 million every year, whether you are in business or not. It will pay your 2, your 100 we are able to pay employees' expenses through regular interest income. So those have been measures that we have put in place for a number of clients, and that means the impact is not as severe.
Wow, that's very nice.
It's
We will
minimized,
clearly
yeah.
have some
Yeah.
side conversations.
Yes,
Yeah,
certainly.
that sounds good.
I actually have a question. We are probably at a space where, of course, we have gone through economic challenges, and we are talking about recovery. But because of the situation at hand, people having been laid off and have lost their jobs, and they are still applying and they are not getting the jobs, how are you able to help this person in a spiritual way, one, or even in a practical way? Not that this person is lazy. They are really pushing themselves hard. They have probably exhausted their savings, but they are still at home. Some people have issues with rent and food. How can we, maybe from Bishop then, yeah.
Yeah, maybe from our perspective, I think when the crisis hit, obviously a lot of things changed. The first thing is that for the first time we had empty churches. This hasn't happened before, and so your congregation is not with you; they are out there, and they are not out there because they are busy. I mean, many of them are facing all the kinds of crises that we knew that they did face. One of the things that we obviously implemented was the food pantry. And we announced that, and it's still ongoing. Nobody who is any of our members who come here, nobody should ever sleep hungry, because we do have enough, I think, congregated goodwill for us to be able to feed each other, and that's what we did. And in fact, I think you probably have better statistics than me of how many food baskets we were giving away continually on a long. And I'm really happy that anybody who didn't have food could have food with their families. Obviously, when it comes to other bigger expenses, there's limitations to what you can help. People did go back to upcountry to cut down expenses. Some probably coalesced their expenses with other people so that they were able to mitigate that. And that's still ongoing, even as we speak. But when we reopened now, I think there's a serious quote-unquote bouncing back. Quite a number of people have gotten other opportunities. I think there are those who went into business that they never even thought they would go into before. There are people who are making money on social media. They've gone into online, and they have found their hustles, so to speak. And I think Kenyans are very, very resilient. And others have given a helping hand to their friends and to their relatives. So there's a lot that is going on. I think there's a reordering of the social order as we knew it before, and the economic order as well. But the spiritual foundations that we've been able to give, I think, have been, people have become very engaged in terms of what is the Lord saying? Where are we at as a nation? What is the future? People ask a lot of questions about 2021. Is there hope? And I think part of even this current series that we are doing in the book of Hebrews is to show us that, God hasn't lost control. He knew this was coming, and he has made certain provisions and certain guarantees for his people to provide food during the famine, to provide water in a thirsty wasteland. And this is his character. So I think for us, we're going back to the basics, reminding ourselves not just who we are as a children of God, but who is our Father, who is this God, and talking about the supremacy of Christ and his ability to come through for us in very difficult circumstances. And I think part of what is beginning to emerge is just the testimonies of people, how God carried them through in an impossible situation. A time when there was just nothing but darkness and hopelessness, but somehow there was that amazing divine hand of God coming to do its divine providence and somehow making a way where you couldn't see that there was a way. So I'm very optimistic myself about this particular year. I'm really, really excited. And it's not just sio kujichocha, it's just hearing and seeing what God is doing among people, and people are coming back to church in a flood. I think it's a bit of almost like a crisis. We're playing catch up because everybody wants to come back, and we're like, okay, we have protocols to observe, so hang on, give us a little breathing time. But I'm really excited about what God is doing. I feel that we will emerge way stronger spiritually. Our spiritual muscles have really been exerted. And I think we will become more authentic Christians and believers than we were before because of the time of testing. And that's common. When God brings a time of testing, people go back to the basics. There's a time, obviously, that we know pre-COVID, we were almost worshiping our jobs and worshiping our sports, and and there wasn't much time to dig strong spiritual foundations. But that was taken away. And when everything is taken away, people are left holding to that which is unshakable, which is God, their faith in God. I feel like that's where we are as a country, and like we are going to emerge way, way stronger. And even though there will be real challenges, I think the muscle to wrestle and to overcome is way stronger than when we were just coasting along because there was no real test. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just to add to that, for this person who's still at home and looking for a job and trying to figure out how exactly can they grow their income and things are still haven't opened up maybe as such, what I would say is look at your skills and inventory. There's still opportunities and things that you can be able to offer that at least can help you bring about or bring some sort of income. Because when you look at the fact that maybe somebody has got a skill, like as Pastor said, in marketing, there's so many businesses out there that are actually looking for a sales team, for a marketing team, in order to be able to grow their revenue. So how can you be able to plug in and maybe see, is that a skill set that you have that you can be able to see how you can market for a certain company, even if you're not on a retainer, but maybe you can do it on a commissions basis by just maybe approaching some of these companies that are trying to drive and grow their sales. Isaiah, some gardening experience that you have somewhere in the background that you can see, okay, fine, you know what can you be able to offer? I have a friend who was telling us that she actually started a daycare. Now that many parents are looking into this homeschooling, and there are others who need to go back to work, but having this sort of house help may not be an option. Some of them are pulling and bringing their children together and at least offering those daycare services for even when you need to run somewhere and maybe attend to an errand. So there's different opportunities that at least even that you can look at and see how do you offer. Is it baking? And is it cooking? Is it, what is it that you can do that at least can bring up some sort of income day to day? I think is what I would say.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think it gives hope to this person who may be feeling helpless and hopeless at this time, and yet there's something yet to be discovered. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to explore more opportunities for bouncing back, whether it's an individual or a family or even a young business or an SME. Stay with us.
I am a city set on a hill that cannot be hid, and I am more than a conqueror. See, but you have been trying to convince me otherwise, saying I'm not good enough, not smart enough. You're always putting me down. Say you never wanna see me smile. But Jesus said I am the salt of the earth, and he says I am the light of this world. So I won't listen to you no more. I will believe in the report of the Lord. Now hear me say, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry, to the glory of the Most High God. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry, to the glory of the Most High God. Say I don't know why I believe the lies that you say about me? All you do is take away my joy, my peace, my blessings and happiness. I am ready for the next level. I am ready to go up higher. I am done with all this backwardness and stagnation. No more backwardness, no more stagnation. I said I am ready for the next level. I am ready to go up higher. I am done with all this backwardness and stagnation. No more backwardness, no more stagnation. Say this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry to the glory of the Most High. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry to the glory of the Most High God. Oh, let your light shine. Hey, let your light shine. Let your light shine to the glory of the Most High God. Go on, hey, let your light shine. Go, let your light shine. Let it shine to the glory of the Most High. Yeah. Let your light shine. Go, let your light shine. Let it shine to the glory of the Most High God. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry to the glory of the Most High God. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I will show the world what I carry to the glory of the Most High God. This little
Welcome back, guys. It's lovely that you stayed tuned. And if you're joining us right now, we are looking at bouncing back, not looking back to what the challenges of 2020 left us with, but also, without ignoring it completely, looking back to how we can improve ourselves. And we want to hear, how can we leverage our existing social groups to strengthen what we are doing or to bounce back? And I think I'll turn to you, Vela. There are some ways we could use that to be back on our feet or to recreate something new and get food on our table.
So as we were saying about the skills inventory that each one of us has, I think once we have reviewed what are those skills and what are those things that we can be able to offer in terms of either sort of products that we can offer and sell, or in terms of services that we can offer and be able at least to market. I think we can use our social groups as a way to be able to market those skills and those products or those things that we have. Because if it was, for example, the daycare that we were talking about that once started, if you have a ladies group somewhere and you share that sort of information or chamas, that I'm sure is something that at least you can be able, even the residential association, for anyone who has an errand to run and maybe you don't have a house help, you know, I can stay with your child for 1 hour and it shall cost you maybe 100 or 200 shillings. That's a way that you can take advantage of that social group to be able to market those skills or those services that you're offering. Or even the products. Like we've been getting a lot of messages of people who are doing pastries, mandazis, samosas being shared all over. And the opportunities always, or the offers always look very, very good and exciting. People who are even, you know, selling certain things. So I think it's good to just ensure that you can be able to use those social groups to be able to market those skills so that at least you can be able to get some income.
I think that's a good invitation because you're saying our social networks are not just for fellowship.
No.
During the time of crisis, they can become a powerful platform for us to experience great relief.
Yes, and it's a low penetration marketing strategy. It's not a costly one. You're not above board. It's just within your networks. You're taking advantage of those networks to be able to easily sell whatever it is that you have so that at least you can get an income.
I like that. I do have a friend who, during COVID, was making, she couldn't go to work at all, but she started making chef das and samosas.
Yes.
And we've been enjoying those quite a bit. So I think there's that opportunity that can be expanded.
Yes.
And among young people, Charity, there could be some exploitation, quote unquote, or usage of existing spaces. Are you familiar with some of those?
Yes, we have the social media, and I think it can be used to bless the masses. I remember last year there was, who I will not mention, he was a celebrity at some point, but he's born again, and he was going through a very hard financial time, and guys came through for him. He couldn't pay rent, but said using TikTok as a way to fend for himself. And he's using comedy for when we were young. You know, the way you're seated there, you're someone's mother or father, and you're telling your son, let's say remote, and the remote is there. So it's just making those situations fun and enjoyable. So you're reliving the way we were growing up. And so you can use them to help you to gain some money. You monetize your accounts, and you do so, but even as you do so, you're doing those things to be able to glorify God, to use your Christian freedoms in the right way. But also for myself, I remember, I said this year I decided to visit as many people as I can and make chapatis for them. And no one
You
is
haven't come
paying.
to my house
I
yet.
will come.
Yeah, where have you been, Charity?
No. You're
Those are
invited,
sacred-
Charity,
Those
to
are
our home.
sacred foods.
You're welcome.
And I think I am honing that gift. One day I could open a joint somewhere where I stay. So you can try and hone that gift with the friends that you have around you. And I also learned to bake banana bread.
Wow.
It's it's banana cake, but it's pretty easy. Use very basic ingredients, 3-4 ingredients, and you're done. So it's just a matter of asking for, just if you have a friend, a true friend, ask for 500. Try and divide that money in a way you can try and make a product out of it. Then you won't sit at the house and do nothing, but you'll be able to fend for yourself and even prepare for the future, even as you make investments and making, what is it called, savings for the future. You are giving the narrative of Noah and the people who were building the ark, and the ones who are watching Noah building the ark and asking, sasa nyinyi mnajenga ark na kunyeshi, why are you doing this? You know, I just liked that narrative. Be the one who's building the ark right now, even when it is very, very dry. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you talked a little, Vela, about schooling. Like a person opening up their space to welcome children and offering a space for the children to learn during these times. And you're a mom. How have you bounced back now that kids weren't going to school before? They've been invited back to school. The school runs are back to us. How are you managing that space?
Wow, it's been a shift, but luckily for us, the school offered a hybrid system.
Okay.
So that helped in terms of easing us off, and then the children were allowed to go to school on only a couple of days a week, so like they can only go 2 days. Because of that, the school space is not very large, and they wanted to still comply with the government directive of social distancing. So like one of our children, one of them can only go 2 days a week. So with that, so it's been an adjustment, trying to ensure, okay, those 2 days a week they can go, then the rest of the time you balance with online learning, and then the other one can only go 3 days a week because in their class they can only be a certain number. So there's been a lot of now shifting and flexibility and agility on, the school dynamics, because you don't know which, trying to coordinate who's going on which day and all that. So it's been an interesting shift, but for me, what I have really learned during this season is that, you know what, they don't even have to be in that school setting to learn. They can still be at home and continue learning and doing the things that they ought to do. As in terms of now, I can actually, it's easier for me to think of embracing homeschooling than before.
Yes.
In fact, I have a couple, some friends who actually didn't take the children back to school, who decided to continue homeschooling first because of, how the economy has been. So they decided, know what, as a way of cost saving, given that they had already been given a trial run during COVID on having the children at home. They were like, you know what, we will continue having the children at home, and they will either hire a tutor with some of the mothers, so where they can be able to share the cost.
Yes.
And be able to continue homeschooling, because it was turning out to be actually cheaper than going back to school. But there are those ones who have, the children have gone back to school, and at least it's now just adjusting to the timings of having to drop off.
And to pick,
but I think there's a lot of flexibility that has come into that whole education sector, where our minds have been opened to things that we had never anticipated before, and we've known that education doesn't have to happen in that formal school setting. Even at home, there's still education that can take place. Yeah.
Wow, that's very well said. And I was just thinking about what we had said earlier. There's this person who is struggling at home, so a parent has an opportunity to make an adjustment, to stay flexible and adjust quickly, so that they can take counsel from what Alex had said earlier. You need not just to spend less, but to figure out how to save and to cut costs. But there's this individual, and I think we want to not forget this individual who is feeling defeated. How can they be inspired to wake up and go on with life?
Well, probably even before I say that one, I can add on to Vera's statement. You know, some of the schools that we are in, when I look at the school that my daughter has chosen, you know, when you pay ordinarily, you write one check very quickly, and you know, you sort it out. But we sat down with the institution, and we had to tell them, listen, let's make some agreements here, because you don't meet all your obligations in January. So some are met in January, February, March.
Yes.
So can we also meet our obligations in the same way?
Right.
Yes.
Because
That's
it's not
true.
the only thing I'm doing. Not that I don't want to pay, but I have to stretch every shilling.
Yes.
I mean to pay, but similarly, they are not going to buy all the bread for January to stretch all the way to March.
Yes.
So there are some things institutions normally do, like
That's
I'm telling you now, where they take all these school fees, maybe put it in a deposit account and generate some extra income. That's all that's going to reduce this season, as I also sort myself out, because I have to spread it, but I do mean to make sure that it's paid. And that is done whether you are at the top of the tier or the bottom of the tier, at the middle of the tier. You have to have cost efficiency in everything. So we have had to apply that, and it helps because we have other obligations that also need us to stretch the dollar, because revenue also is something else you have to watch. But more so going into now this individual who's feeling defeated, I was asked a question as to whether you know, your salary is X, are you going to survive, or you have, and I keep saying even zero is a space to start. Because when you are born, God sent you here with all the tools necessary. Part of the tools could be, I don't have hands. That's not the problem. That might be what has happened now. But I have somebody else who has hands, and I can network them. Let me explain what I'm saying. What Vera is saying here is something that you use your network to generate an income where you're doing an input. There are some places where you don't even need to put capital in, your time and everything. All I need to know is, for example, I need to provide information that there is somebody who can provide a service that you actually need. And I'm paid a service fee. A lot of corporates exist and make a commission between it. And you know, I was laughing because where we live there is a school, and somewhere across us there is a good friend of ours who has eggs. And I was challenging my son, instead of sitting here and telling me you want a phone, why don't you use the networks you have to afford this phone?
Yes.
So you go to the neighbor and tell them, I can increase your sales. Because that's what everybody wants to hear. I can increase your sales. How? I can buy 30 extra trays a week, as long as you can give me this price and assure me you'll deliver. Okay, so how do you plan to do this? Then you tell me, where to live up? Go the opposite side and go to the school. By the way, I can reduce your cost.
Increase and reduce. Okay.
Yes, I can
like
increase your sales, but I can reduce your cost. How do you reduce the cost? I'll make sure there's no delivery cost. Quite frankly, the person is right across the road.
Yes.
So it is just to cross them,
Yes.
right? You have to think what is in your network. You know, sometimes people are so used to, I go to employment, so I have to use this very hardcore route to make money. But if you're selling, like I was telling him, if you're selling 30 trays an egg, a week, and maybe twice, and you make your 400 shillings every delivery, those are resources which, in fact, have nothing to do with you because it just delivers from there to here, and you make some resources. Now, that's a very simplistic approach, but I'm trying to find out, do you know who's somebody who needs something and somebody who can do something and connect the two of them? God brought you to this world without money in your pocket. Actually, you were born without it, but He knew how you'd be provided for. Part of it is in your network.
Yeah.
And these people, all you need is a relationship that can be vouched for, and even your parents or your friends can stand it and say, listen, if there was a delay in payment, we can sort you out as long as we are assured by the other receiver they can pay us in time. You know, don't be too hard on yourself to be a Puritan, that, oh, I want to do things secretly. The success 101 is communicate. Within your network, they will tell you what exists. Now, the other space is really retool yourself. Because what you're saying is my tool is not sharp enough to drop numbers right now. And you accept, because one of the things that is very necessary is flexibility and agility during difficult circumstances. So I can look at the industry and I can tell there are people who are hiring, but I have this tool called time. Because certainly if I'm not at an office, I'm at home, I have time to retool. So which is the industry that is absorbing people right now? You know, a lot of manufacturing of various things. I even hear there is, this, what are they called? The sanitizers and all these things. There was an opportunity to learn how to do it or be employed to do it. There was opportunities to, sell very many things, like home decors and do those kind of things and practice things that really people need. So how do I need to retool myself? Some of these things are online courses. They don't need you to go to anyone's school. You can quickly pick up or even provide yourself as somebody who can be available to work for free for 2 weeks and learn the skill and then start charging for it.
Yeah.
This is, you have to be resilient until, you are like, listen, I'm not going down. I was brought here with the skills. I need to discover them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the time God has given you to discover your skills.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, and I'm an employee of this nature, maybe God reminded you, listen, you have 2 hands. Why are you using only one? Use the other one and see what happens. So there are really those opportunities to sit and say, first, I will not go down.
Yes.
I have to figure. For me, if it was kinyozi, I would be knowing a few people. I would be shaving a few people. Bishop doesn't live too far from me. I would walk to his place. It takes no cost. I would take a machine to his place, which is his electricity. And then I would shave him. The one he may tell me,
Tutabadilisha hiyo bichinjo.
But he's in my network. He'll be like, hey, this young man needs a job.
Yeah.
So
The man needs a haircut also.
and probably start with somebody else. But
As you
this is the
practice,
thing. There is a
upon your
network.
skill.
There is a tool you can develop and make it sharp for you to get out of the current rut.
Yes, and maybe just to add to what Alex was saying, you see, with regards to time, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So use that time wisely, as to do something. Because if you stay idle, it's the worst thing. You'll end up feeling sorry for yourself, which would be very, very unfortunate. And yet, there's all these resources and things that you can do to just push along and do something. So I think, use that time.
That's perfect. I believe someone has listened and had clearly. Time is such a resource. And we want to know, how can our spiritual resource be utilized to come back?
I think I 100% agree with that idea of my network increasing my net worth. I think that's what we are saying, and how true that is also for us as believers who insist that we grow in community, because we have the natural communities in which we meet together, and it's surprising. You see this, and it happens across the board in almost every real group or life group or cell group. You know, you come there, and just if you're new, you're introduced to the people, and suddenly you see all this array of opportunities that are before you, people doing things completely different from you, but services you need, and you yourself offering services that they need.
Yes.
And I think it is again to strongly say that, you know, within the Christian faith, ours is a faith that we don't celebrate lone rangers, because that's not who we are. We are to grow in community. And once we are better together, literally. And so to go back to our small groups, our Bible study groups, to go back to family units, and take each other seriously about what's going on. The other thing is that the utilization of the resource of time is to dive back to the Word of God. I think that is where that is the anchor, because again, the word is a lamp unto my feet. God is the one who directs us through His word and through His Spirit. The same word will tell you, you know, if you ever come to a place where it's dark and it's, you know, or it's lonely, you know, that still small voice, this is the way, walk in it, here in it. That's in the Word of God. So God is directing us, but we need to be paying attention and to be listening. I mean, one of the most amazing things about the story of Moses is how God grabbed his attention through the burning bush experience. I always imagine this wouldn't have happened, but supposing he just decided to walk by, I mean, the entire Exodus would never have happened, because that was the place of his calling, and God was drawing attention to him. And when he paid attention, he got to actually hear God. And God is always talking. He's speaking to us. But sometimes we are too busy and we're not paying attention to what he says. And we need to be alive and awake to the burning bush moments, because they are always there. When God comes in a special way, appears, he wants to tell me something. And usually it is in the middle of that darkness when that person is feeling hopeless. Because when you hit rock bottom, then we know that's when God's strength is made perfect. That's when he comes to carry you through. So I think we need to pay attention. That attention is in his word, and as we take the word seriously, we just listen for the still small voice. God will open an opportunity on social media. Tell Charity to come and cook chapo at the bishop's house. You know, these are the things we are seeing.
Yeah.
Good things like that.
Yeah.
But God is available. God is speaking to us. Sometimes he's speaking to us through our friends, our colleagues, as we go to study his word together, an encouragement, an exhortation, a prayer, because sometimes you just need the saints to come around you, lay hands on you, and bless you, and speak a word of hope, and you feel your spirits revive, and then before you know it, you are out, and those opportunities are within you. Yeah.
Wow. I think we've learned quite a bit from one another. And I think I can say this to our audience, that there's no need for anyone to walk alone. And there's no need for anyone to feel hopeless and helpless. Because apart from being being a community, there's always the Word of God. And I think that's what we have time for today.
A few shout-outs, perhaps.
So, do you have a few shout-outs?
Yes, I do.
Before we say kwaheri to one another?
Yes, we have a very own Reverend Maura. He's saying great lessons from this conversation. Reverend Jasmine Wangai as well, she says, really appreciate the ideas that Vera has shared to help one jump back. There's clearly so much that is in our hands. We have also Mathenge Maina, Karibu Sana, Jasmine Wangai. So he's just agreeing with what Jasmine has said. Konare Akanda says, the COVID pandemic has reminded us how interdependent we are. What happens to one person can soon affect many others, even on the far side of the planet. Then Konare has also said, he's complimenting, he's saying, keep it up, Charity. That is marvelous. It is up for all of us to try to cultivate peace of mind and to think about what we can do for others, including those we never ever see. Yes.
Thank
Those
you
are
so much.
Yes, the ones
we
who
want to
joined
say
us. Yes.
thank you to each one of you. Charity, thank you so much for co-hosting. Bishop Charles, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And our good visitors who are now family to Mamlaka Hill Chapel social space, Vela and Alex. Thank you so much for sharing your time
and
with
Maggie,
us.
maybe let me just point people to Isaiah 44. I
Oh,
think
sure.
it's something that
Yeah.
you should just go and read. Actually, both 43 and 44. One of them says, you know, it is an urge to forget the former things. It's like God has said, this is the reset button. Things are going to look different. Don't dwell in the past. I'm going to do a new thing. It's a word of hope. Then 44 is actually just God saying, look, I know you, I love you, I will help you. You know, I know you've never been this way before, but guess what? I'm going to make a way. I think just reflecting on those Isaiah 43 and Isaiah 44 is very, very encouraging. The Isaiah 43 is from verse 18 and 19, and then the rest of it, just read the whole of it and just see how God is actually rooting for us, saying, I'm going to help you. You're not on your own. Yeah.
Thank you. What a nice way to end the show today with a word of hope and encouragement from Isaiah 42, 43, and 44. Bless you and have a very good week. We'll see you next time.